Chapter 44. Once we arrived in the airspace of the two Rhelasia nations, our lighthearted conversation was cut short as Megan's ship sent a frantic series of beeps and other noises as somehow the military units of both nations were already tracking the invisible ship through the airspace and were hailing us. Luther's tech that he sold to both skirmishing nations isn't to be underestimated. I thought frowning at how they could find the Marshall bioship before I told Robin to answer the hail from North Rhelasia, and I answered the hail from South Rhelasia, so we didn't leave them hanging. This is Justice League agent, codenamed Lord, approaching Rhelasia's airspace, under invitation by both respectable nations to act as security during the peace summit over. I explained, and after a moment of silence as Robin gave a similar response to North Rhelasia's hail, the nations gave us permission to enter. Not that they could stop me and Galatea from flying in, but as Wonder Woman said, the pride of little politicians needs to be assuaged when walking gods that could ignore a nation's military go traveling. Everyone keep your head on a swivel. I guarantee the moment the mediator comes to the peace summit, they will be attacked without fail. I warned the group, earning nods from the teenagers. Finally, though we landed our bioship and were welcomed by a small group of soldiers and security detail members of both nations' leaders that attempted to sideline us by literally posting us all down the street from the peace summit itself so they could play at actually having the League's protection while also keeping us out of sight of the press. Look, I don't care about the political games your leaders are playing. Our jobs are to keep missiles, aliens, and terrorists from attacking your peace summit. If we are down the road when something happens, we will not be able to react in time should something actually does happen. And when something does happen, what? You going to blame the League for its incompetence? I questioned, and the agents shared a look before nodding and bowing out, letting us do our damn jobs. Robin, Artemis, you are Overwatch. Take over the roof of the embassy. Superboy and Kid Flash, you guys patrol the crowds. Galatea, you fly above to see if you can find anything suspicious with your senses, and lastly, Miss Martian, you merge into the crowds and stop them from rioting if something does happen. I ordered, knowing Miss Martian, although unwilling to do any hard mind control on people, was still capable of enforcing a dull heavy calm on a crowd. Galatea pouted, hearing me send her away from myself as I, in my more regale outfit and not giving a whit about my face being recognized, was chosen to be our representative as well as the best person other than Wally to directly protect the VIPs, General and President of Rhelasia's lands. I greeted, shaking the two older men's hands in greeting stoically as I was in my full human form. All the cameras and people were able to see and hear me for a change during the mission. Lord. They greeted, shaking my hands, and I couldn't help but wonder if my past life ever thought he would be shaking the hands of the equivalates of both of the leaders of the nations of Korea. In a few minutes I was posted up outside the embassy with the two world leaders waiting for the VIP intermediary that was going to act as the middle ground in the peace summit. I could definitely see the personalities of two leaders, as the general of North Rhelasia was rather surly, and when he did bring me into their conversation he asked for my opinion on military stuff and whether I had any history in service, while the South Rhelasia president was much more outgoing and wanted to ask me how being a hero in the States was going. Granted, their somewhat friendly demeanors was probably just playing it up for the hundreds of cameras facing us as we awaited the VIP to arrive. VIP inbound. I heard through my earpiece from Galatea, and both of the world leaders gave me a look, seeing my head tilt to the side while some of their security came over to give them the imminent warning that the VIP in a large, long limo was on its way. Ah, Lord, well, I hope you don't overreact. Mr. Luther is our honored guest. The president of South Rhelasia warned me, and I kept a cool poker face as I nodded. This is your land, I said, drawing both leaders' attention before I continued. The Justice League is only here in on peacekeeping actions and will keep ourselves from interfering unless something threatens said peace or there are human rights violations happening before our eyes, I said dully, with the leaders giving an understanding nod as they obviously made plans to hide or bury any skeevy shit going on in the vicinity. And then came the man of the hour within an obviously armored to all hell limousine, and as the reporters went wild trying to guess who was to be the intermediary of the peace summit, just as I expected, some dumbass assassin decided to shoot an RPG at the front windshield of the limo, which was honestly the worst place to shoot it, as it would need to blow up the cab section and stretch all the way into the back of the limo if there weren't any extra dividers in the massive limo to block off this very explosion and help play into Luther's hands. But before the missile could even reach halfway to the limo, it was tagged by an expanding foam grenade arrow sent by Artemis, taking out the missile as it gently slapped onto the ground with its exhaust pipe clogged up by the foam, and with it being cradled by the foam it couldn't even explode on impacting the ground. Flash, apprehend the assailant. I ordered, but the speedster was already speeding through the crowd of dull-eyed reporters that Miss Martian had pacified, and I could hear a small fight break out as Kid Flash, Robin, and Superboy quickly took down Sportsmaster, who was the one who shot the rocket at the limo. But my eyes weren't on the scuffle. Instead my golden eyes were locked onto the cunning blue eyes of the bald man who regally, without seemingly a single care that a missile almost blew up his vehicle, walked over to the world leaders and shook their hands. General and President of Rhelasia, it's an honor to meet you both in an amicable summit such as this. And Lord of the Justice League. I have heard so much about you lately. Lex Luthor said, with his every word hinting at a dozen possibilities even without my foreknowledge, so I only grunted, as playing into the egomaniac's mind games was a hopeless endeavor, as I freely admitted he was more intelligent and cunning than I was, with him being a still mostly sane, mad scientist at times. Well, gentlemen, let's all go inside so we can talk. Just make sure to spare the cameras some smile so the people can relax. Luthor said charismatically as he stepped away from me, and then, flanked by the Rhelasian leaders, he walked into the Peace Summit building. Is Sportsmaster in custody? I asked, wondering if he pulled off another bullshit teleport somehow. No, we just had to smack him around a couple times, then he lost all the fight in him. League assassins most certainly don't do that, so something has to be screwy. Robin said through the comms, making me hum in thought. Galatea and Kid Flash stick with me at the summit. The rest you watch over Sportsmaster. He almost certainly has backup, and when they go to break him out, follow them to find out who is behind all this. I ordered, wondering how much Shah Ghul actually wanted Luthor dead if he was willing to allow his pawns to be captured, and honestly, putting Sportsmaster, who was a highly skilled assassin in his own right, in a supermax prison will be good enough for me,